hard to get rid of Cowboy Ken, though.
He'd have to move somewhere where he's still visible.
Yeah.
Just,
Cowboy fucking Ken.
he'll kind of always be legendary because it's requested by Robo.
I think I've told you about that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Street Fighter Cross Tekken, which is a dead giveaway because in the left-hand corner there's a woolly mammoth that kind of looks like a monster from the new Monster Hunter with like the blue accents. If you think about it,
yeah.
But yeah, so this is Street Fighter Cross Tekken, right here, and this is a great level because it was like you're on the back of like a ship. You on the right hand side you can kind of see like one of the wind turbines or the engines, and then like the back of the ship opens up and you're like flying through this chasm while you're fighting, but there's like woolly mammoths chasing you in the background. It's a pretty great stage.
Shit's so funny.
And yeah, so like Ken's obviously in the game, but the Cowboy Ken costume was only in Street Fighter 4. That's like where it appeared. And
so they've just like
I glommed
retrofitted this into
because it's the same for all the Street Fighter characters. They obviously had to do all the Tekken characters like from scratch.
Yeah.
But all the Street Fighter characters are Street Fighter 4 models, right?
So
so they were just like somebody online was like, I'm gonna Brutal Ace.
I think it was Brutal Ace.
Brutal Ace modded the Cowboy Ken costume into Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and it was apparently requested by Robal.
It's so funny.
It's really stupid. Cowboy Ken though is something else, man. That's like quintessential Ken as well. Like what they did with Ken's face in Street Fighter 6, it's like nightmare fuel. I think that's one of my big issues with Street Fighter 6, aside from the fact that no character that's come out thus far has really resonated with me. Although I did play a little bit of Mai Shiranui, which is a Fatal Fury character that was the second to the last DLC character for season 2. I played a little bit with her and I was like, okay, this
character's got something.
She's got this move where, so historically, do you know Mai Shiranui?
No.
All right. Well, she hangs like down low. So like her stance is basically she's got like one arm down to the ground that's got like a fan, like a traditional Asian fan. Okay. And then one of her other arms like kind of hangs up, but she's kind of leaning down and she has like enormous boobs, right? And they like flop around and it's gross, but she's a very popular Fatal Fury character. But what they've done with her, she's always like, basically her fireball is she throws her fan. And it's usually like a pretty slow moving projectile through the air. So it's kind of an interesting mechanic because like Ken or Ryu have got a pretty fast fireball that's going to close distance across the screen. Hers is more slow moving. But in Street Fighter 6, what they've done is if you EX her fan, you throw it, and if it hits, it'll do like two combo, like it'll start a combo string essentially. So do 2 hits. But on block, if you EX it, it will block the fan, but then the fan flies in the air and then spins, and you have to block it again. Which sets up like a lot of crazy potential for combos depending on where you're at, right? Like it just gives the player something to think about. It's like, oh, this thing's spinning in the air, I gotta block it, but then also you're free to move while that fan is in the air. So it sets up like a lot of setups and things like that, which is really cool. So she's neat. She's incredibly sexualized. Like the character is just sexualized.
I just across the board am not a fan of Street Fighter art styles. Just like when I compare it to others, it's never been for me.
Have you seen much CVS 2 or Marvel vs. Capcom 2?
Yeah, I mean I've seen Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and maybe that one.
That's some of the greatest like. Set aside like the sprite work, which I think is fantastic, and was just like an amalgamation of like probably 5 or 6 years of Capcom developed fighting games, because they did like Marvel superheroes, and they did like the Chaos Emerald game, or not Chaos Emeralds, that's Sonic, but like
It,
the Thanos Emeralds. I can't remember the name of it. But there was like a lot of different like Marvel inspired fighting games
mhm.
that they just took the sprites from those games and mashed them up against sprites from, Capcom games of the time, with Marvel versus Capcom 1, right?
Mm.
But it was like a limited roster, and then with 2 they just elevated it even more. And I think the sprite work in that game is fantastic. It's not the best. It's like, I think Fatal Fury, or excuse me, King of the Fighters 13 is the best like hand drawn sprite work that has ever existed in a fighting
Mhm.
game. It's fantastic. But I will say that the art, like the accompanying art for Marvel vs. Capcom 2, is done by a artist called Bengus.
Mhm.
That's his real name, his Japanese name. He doesn't have a last name. It's
Great.
just Bengus.
Perfect.
And he's like a legend. And like some of that artwork from the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 days, I think is some of the best art that exists for fighting games.
And,
Hands down.
and I'm not over here trying to say it's not good. I'm saying that it's not for me, right? Because I'm not certainly not qualified to try to say, oh, Street Fighter 4 art's bad. No, it's that I don't jive with it so much as I'm just like, it's not for me. Like, but like Tekken, Tekken 8, super into that shit.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, Street Fighter 6 is the most visually impressive Street Fighter game, with like all of the like the drive rush mechanics, when you like pull a drive rush off, and there's like that like streak of like green color graffiti shit
Yeah.
that throws off. It's very visually impressive. But like the way that some of the characters are animated
I don't like
drives me
I
nuts.
don't like how exaggerated they all are. And that's
Sure.
like part of the genre too.
I
So
mean,
like
Tekken's pretty exaggerated
I
too.
get it, but like not Nina Williams, and that's what I play, so it's fine. It's like
I mean, she's like
it's
yeah. I mean, a very like fit woman,
sure,
right? Like she's incredibly fit, like attractive woman.
sure, but like the E Honda character is a freak of nature. Like what is going on here, right?
Yeah, but have you ever heard of Ganryu?
No.
Ganryu is a Tekken character that is just a sumo wrestler that is
Huh.
like exactly like Eon.
This is the problem. This is the problem with talking to you about fighting games, is that I just dig myself a hole.
Yeah,
You're a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, Ganryu is just E Honda. Like I mean, Ganryu's. I've never been a Honda fan. Like, I don't like Honda's kit. I think Honda's super scrubby, and the way that you play Honda sucks in any iteration of Honda, whether it's Super
No.
Turbo Honda, or it's Street Fighter 4 Honda, or if it's 6 Honda in particular. It's just like the butt slams are just so fucking annoying.
Do they is it Thousand Hand Slapper? What is that?
Yeah.
Called?
Yeah.
Do they still so I was around when it was a stationary move, and then it moved and he could like inch forward. He could move a little bit during it. Where's it at these days? Can he move a little bit while he's doing it now?
It depends on if you spend meter.
Yes, but meter to move?
Yeah.
Oh, well, when I played, that was not like somewhere after 2, it changed, and you could just like slightly just creep forward with it.
Yeah, like if you spend meter now, he will like it's a really effective move if you have like screen priority. Like
Okay.
if you're like playing footsies and you're mid screen, like it's not that great to expend meter
But if
to
you're pushing,
yeah, because you
Yeah.
push, like you push and then move the character, like whoever you're playing against, backwards, right? So like generally speaking, it's a pretty good option if you are like in your opponent's side of the screen, because then you can get like corner
Sure.
corner options, which are always really good. And if you get a knockdown, then you get like some pretty cool Okazeme. But like nobody plays Honda in Street Fighter 4. Honda had some like loyalists that were really goddamn good with Honda.
Sure.
In 6, and like I don't know about Super Turbo. It's a little before my time to really be like plugged into the competitive scene with Super Turbo, but like you rarely see Hondas in tournaments. I mean, people still play Turbo in tournaments and stuff like that for fun. Um,
Street Fighter 2 has a turbo version, right?
yeah,
Tournament edition, I think, or something. But
there was like a number
I,
of iterations, but Super Turbo was the final
I
version of Street Fighter 2.
I had gotten the turbo version for the SNES, so whatever one was on that system, and I we picked it up, and the next day I was having a surgery. I don't recall if it was. I had a number of ear surgeries growing up, skin grafts and things, and then tonsils out. So I don't know which one, but I remember telling my dad, I was just like, after I wake up out of anesthesia, we just like carry me down, put me on the couch, and just like
And let me play Super Turbo.
let me play. And I'd like to report that he did not do that. I actually did not get to play till like I just slept the rest of the day. But I remember it being like adamant. I was just like, this is incredible. Like, I just want you to like put me here. I'm for sure gonna play it again.
I forgot, but Honda was in Alpha 3 as well. I totally forgot about Alpha 3. He's in Alpha 3, but
Yeah.
I really don't remember his kit in Alpha 3 at all.
So Street Fighter 6, who's missing? Who hasn't shown up that you're like, what the fuck's going on?
I mean, for me, Cody, but he's my main. I'd like to see Nash come back as well, who was my main in Street Fighter 5 until Cody came out in Street Fighter 5.
So you're just furious because two of your favorite characters aren't in the game?
No, I'm not furious. I just don't really resonate with like, I mean, so Cody has been my main for a long period of time. I got more into Street Fighter than I ever have with Street Fighter 4, and Cody was my main. And I love the kit that he has. I was not as big of a fan of what Cody could do in Street Fighter 5. Um, but I've always like my secondary has always been Ken, like 100%.
Sure.
Ken generally like from game to game is usually pretty strong. You know, I can't think of a game. Well, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, he's not strong in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 at all.
When did that game come out?
Capcom 2?
Yeah.
Marvel vs. Capcom 2 came out in like 2000.
2000, yeah.
Yeah.
Arcades, because that's where I think I remember it.
Yeah, Capcom 2 I think came out in 2000. But he's not super strong in that game. But he has use cases like as an assist character because that's a 3 character fighter. So like, you know, that's kind of the beauty of those games is like really the weirdos will figure out like a way to if their combos and like the things that they can do when they're on the screen isn't necessarily super strong, their assists come in and become very powerful.
Define assist.
So like with Marvel vs. Capcom series, you have a 3 character roster, so or 3 character team.
Okay.
So like you usually have like a starting character, a mid character, and then your anchor, right? And you know, depending on what's going on the screen,
you can swap in.
Well, you can swap in, but then you can also assist. So every character in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in particular, there were 3 different styles, I think is what it was called, something like that, where you could pick at the character selection screen that would be your assist, right? So like with Ken in particular,
like certain combo moves or something that
you
can like initiate
synergizing combos, right? So like one character, your character that's on the screen starts a combo string and you're actively doing damage, and then you sub in like very quickly.
Sure.
Ken comes in, does one move that and continues bounces that combo and then moves out, right? Yeah. So like things like that. Yeah.
That's fun stuff.
It is really fun. It's very cool. But yeah, I don't know. Like going back to your question, like who needs to be in Street Fighter 6 that's not there? There's a lot because it's pretty early in it. I mean, realistically, we're probably gonna see 6 supported for 3 to 4 more years. And so
4 more years,
3 to 4 more years. Yeah, it just depends. Like we're in season 2. If you look at Street Fighter 5 in particular, I think that they got to season 5 or 6 before they wrapped it.
I just feel like the world's changed. I don't think that that's gonna happen.
I don't think that it
Really?
no, they're not gonna just roll out
Well,
a new Street
well,
Fighter
and
game.
I
No.
guess also this one has been better than the previous one. They found success with 6.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, there's a lot of problems with 6
More
right
than
now.
5, though. Like 5 had problems.
Five had problems for a long period of time, but I think very recently in the community there was like a lot of people that were going back to five.
Well, but if I remember the story right that you recollect that you told me is that they brought in a guy and he did a lot of great things with 5 towards the end, and then
Two guys,
he owned 6.
two
So
guys own 6.
and
Yes,
then so it just seems like 6 is in a far better place. So maybe that just seems crazy to me. I would still, because of just the landscape of the world, I do not think that the next Street Fighter comes out in 2029. I don't think that's
2028 maybe.
maybe.
I think that you're towing a fine line because
If you
the
move too
community
fast.
wants yes the community wants you to support the game, right? And that's a big part of any fighting game is like bring
Yeah.
in new characters, bring in fresh faces, you know what I mean, and really evolve the game, right?
Sure.
And I think that you're looking at it through the wrong lens where it's like, yes, is Street Fighter 6 in its current state going to last until 2027, 2028? No. But if you look at any Street Fighter release in the past, just, 3 decades, that's not the way that Street Fighter functions, right?
Yeah.
They're going to do an arcade edition or whatever they're going to call it, which is going to be like an opportunity for them to
That's not a new game. That's the same thing with new bells and whistles.
exactly, but they're going to release it again as a new game, right?
And they haven't done that with 6 yet.
No.
And that would be released with essentially all the characters, and then they move forward again.
Yeah,
right?
potentially like 3 or 4 new characters with like
but
the
all
next
previous
release.
characters.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's way more than 3. It's all of the ones they've added since 6 came out.
Yes.
So it means
But I'm saying like when the update comes out, there'll be potentially 3 or 4 more characters.
because
Like
they're
it's
all
going to be
paid,
this.
right?
What?
They're all paid characters.
Yes. Yeah. They're
So,
all
like,
paid characters.
Well, that's the draw, though, right? Like you come out with that new version of 6, it includes 10 of those paid characters.
Yep.
And bundles it all up into a nice little package.
Yeah, whatever they call it, like the AE edition,
Sure.
Street Fighter 4. Street Fighter 4 in particular did like Street Fighter 4 Vanilla, and then there was Arcade Edition, and then there was Ultra. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
that they've been doing that since the beginning. Like they did the same thing with Street Fighter 2, right?
Yeah,
And
sure.
so it's like yes, and it's not just characters, but it's like new mechanics, right?
Sure.
So like this game is in its infancy when it comes to Street Fighter. Like, and I do not see, especially with the 2 guys that are heading the team now.
Mhm.
It's not Yoshinori Ono anymore. Nakayama and I can't remember the other guy's name. But Nakayama is the big player with the end of Street Fighter 5 and now into Street Fighter 6. So it just doesn't function in the same way as like other titles do. Like
Yeah.
they're gonna milk it for everything that it's worth, and that's why I say that I don't think that we see Street Fighter 7 or whatever they call it for a long period of time.
I have other rapid fire fighting game questions for you.
Sure, go.
Is Dead or Alive a good game?
Yes, it's a good game. It's a very good game.
Where'd they go wrong?
I think in my opinion, where Dead or Alive kind of fails, and like some people are going to be like, this guy's an idiot. Like people that are really into the FGC will probably disagree with me, but I think that their reliance on like fan service, I think, is where they go wrong. For like the broader audience, like I know that there's a lot of people that really love the fan service in Dead or Alive, but like for me, I think that it just detracts from like an otherwise very solid 3D fighter.
Like the way that their combat system works.
It's fantastic.
They've got something there,
Yeah.
and it's a good thing. I mean, I don't recall. I think it was on the PS4, but that was the grossest version that anyone's ever seen. as far as the
Well, it's
microtransactions included with the last one, because that was a
sure.
free to play fighting game where everything was
Right,
up for
outright.
purchase.
You're right.
Right out of the
Yes.
gate, it was like you could spend $1,000.
Yeah. To put all of these
Yeah,
female characters in like scantily clad, bikinis and stuff like that.
which
And that's like extreme beach volleyball has become
exists.
very
Yeah,
well, it's like we don't they don't even they well, that's not true. Like technically they localize it for Asian markets, so like Hong Kong and things like that. So for like the
yeah.
people that really 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 need to release themselves to scantily clad,
I
attractive women playing volleyball and
I bought
other beach games.
I
Like you
bought
can get it, but it's not coming out in the
I
West
bought that game, the first one, the day it came out. And yeah,
on the Xbox.
the IGN wrote articles about it every 2 days because clearly it was moving traffic, right?
Sure.
And on the original Xbox, I bought it and tried to convince everyone that this was a good volleyball game. And
Yeah,
it's
like that's the thing. That's the thing is it's just like the spin-off titles and they're still making them. I think one released like last year or
that's
2 years
crazy.
ago. But they're not like properly released in the West, but you can like if you are a deviant, you can go and find an English
They
a
are.
copy that has English in it.
I mean, I was quite young when they first came out, but they are pretty gross. Like just I
Yeah.
mean, they have a goal and they absolutely achieved the goal that they're set out to do as far as women in bikinis, and it's pretty
But also I
crazy.
would say like I think that they're fantastic fighting games. Like if you can get past that shit, like
Not the volleyball, but the
the
actual
fighting
fighting game.
games.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the fighting games are really
I
good.
played a ton of it on the original Xbox. I think it was Zero Life 2.
Yeah.
And I had a ton of fun with it. I thought it was yeah, I thought it was good, but I've never been into games, fighting games like you were, so I wasn't looking at
Yeah, no,
the
they're
higher
they're
metrics.
they're really good. But it's also like kind of a crowded market when you compare it to like Tekken or
Yeah.
Virtua Fighter. It does not hold up.
So, follow up question: How do you make? How do you make? Is it possible to make a new fighting game today that plays in like the top three? Like, is it possible to release a new fighting game with new characters, new IP that is like actually this competes with Street Fighter, Tekken, whatever, Guilty Gear, whoever the next one is? But like, does it happen?
Um, that's a good question. I would say, and I don't say this with like any sort of pride, but I don't think so.
It's kind of
No,
impossible,
I
almost,
think
right?
because they struggle with this like kind of dynamic, right? Where it's like people that are in the FGC that are really diehard about fighting games do not want their fighting games watered down. They
Yeah.
want it to be very complex. They want it to be, something that they can spend hours and hours and hours labbing and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't
Mm.
work, and then you have the opposite side of that where there's people that are very much just interested in the casual aspect of a fighting game, right?
Mhm.
And I think that those two demographics are at odds with one another, right? And naturally the person on the right or the people on the right side that just want a casual experience, they generally will pick up a fighting game to play like a story mode if it's present, like Mortal
Eh,
Kombat for instance, and then they dip,
But aren't
right?
they only they could be at odds, but aren't they also aligned in that the hardcore people really want to fucking play the Street Fighter characters and the casuals also still want to have the fucking Street Fighter characters? They just aren't invested in the same way.
It's just a time investment, right?
Sure.
Like,
Well, it's a time that's a drastically as far as who's for more committed, but there are people that just want to play like the next Mortal Kombat or the next Tekken because they just want to play and they know those characters, but they're
yeah.
not hardcore. And there's people that are hardcore that just want to play those characters because they're hardcore, and they're
Mhm.
kind of like almost aligned for a moment because they're like, well, yeah, I've been playing like me, literally, like. I've been throwing fireballs for a long time in my life. I can go play Ken and have some fun.
Mhm.
And another person can play Ken because of the deeper mechanics, where a new IP is just like, well, who the fuck are those? And neither of those groups are like, well, what do you, this is a big ask. Like
Sure.
an absolutely new IP coming in is just it's kind of a daunting thing.
Super daunting. I think the game that you can look at that really is going to either prove or disprove like the argument
Mm.
is 2XKO, which comes out this year,
Yeah.
presumably. The Cannon brothers have been working on that, which anybody that's not familiar with them, they are lifelong FGC members, and they know what they're doing. They're twins,
Yeah.
and they not that really matters, but it's just kind of an interesting thing. They look,
Twins make good games. It's just known.
they're identical twins, but they have been a part of the FGC for a very long time.
Sure.
And Riot, intentionally
Wait,
brought
is this
in
the League of Legends?
yes,
Yeah.
2XKO is the League of Legends game.
Cheating with the argument I'm proposing, but
How is that cheating?
Because it's not new IP. You're still relying on old IP. Like,
yeah, but
it's
but,
still,
but it's a new IP in the way that it's a fighting game, right? And
except a billion people are super into the franchise already.
yeah, but we've never seen a fighting game in
Sure.
the IP, right? Like if you want to get more granular with it and you say like you're just introducing a whole new IP with whole new characters and
just seems
hoping
impossible.
hoping to find any level of success, no, I don't think that it's possible.
It's like
because plenty of them exist. Like you can go on the Steam fighting game page
Right.
and find like plenty of new fighting games that come out, but like they're not gaining the same traction
It's like
because they are designed for like the hardcore, right?
it's probably like a bad example, but it would be like, oh, it's a new superhero movie coming out. It's like, all right, is it Marvel or is it DC? It's Todd's Tricksters. It's like, what the fuck's that?
Yeah.
Like, that's not
Todd's
that is not well, like, what the fuck is, like, what is fundamentally, like, people are just gonna reject it because they're just like, well, it's not the Batman universe,
Right.
and it's not the Marvel universe, and it's just a hard sell. So we've gotten to this point where it's just like, how do you actually like create something completely new? Like, everything reverts to Stanley. It's fucking crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
It's a very hard thing. It would need to have like some cultural significance, right?
to
And
ever get a leg up.
yeah, and I don't mean like you have to rely on like a known IP to make that successful, but it would have to be like some sort of like
Yeah.
accessible mechanic in the game that really caught fire in the way that like say a PUBG caught fire
Or an Overwatch.
or no, well, yeah,
Like, an
I
Overwatch
would
is
say
a great example of like, actually, it's all new. And you're
right.
like,
Yeah, for sure. I think PUBG is a better example because like Overwatch was at the time a cultural phenomenon for sure. But if you look at like the 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 heat of PUBG's like emergence, like that like Overwatch was like more or less a continuation of like hero shooters because like they weren't the first. They certainly evolved it and improved it in very tangible ways that made it a much more compelling experience than previous games
like Team
had.
Fortress existed.
Sure, exactly. But PUBG, for instance, like nothing had existed like that up to that point, right? Like that battle royale genre really lit the world on
Mm.
fire for foolish reasons, in my opinion, because that game sucks. But
Well, I think that's what speaks to it, because there were gameplay elements that were so good that people overlooked an enormous amount of
Yeah.
fucking jank, because
Yeah.
the game was quite bad.
mhm,
Like, just in how it functioned and played, especially,
isn't it still
like,
quite bad?
and well, they've dropped the ball, obviously, because they, like, Fortnite happened,
Right.
And you always have this comparison where it's just like, obviously they have some missteps, but like,
And like
they-
Apex came
they-
out, and
they had trailers where they're just like, here comes mantling, and you're just like, this is fucking wild. Like,
Right.
and I don't know where it's at today, like how it's changed. I'm actually somewhat curious.
Should we
Like,
go play PUBG?
I'm not against it because, like, have they? I would be curious if we played it and we're like, what have you been doing for the last 4 years? 'Cause I haven't played it in probably 3 or 4 years.
But
I
do you kind of understand where I'm coming from?
No, I can understand why PUBG was a bigger splash
Yeah.
than an Overwatch.
And I think that like when we're talking about like fighting games, it would have to be something like that revolutionary. But I just don't think that exists because like
Who's going
with
to
it,
get the funding to do what you need to do?
well, it's also Riot has pumped tons of money into 2XKO and like have been working on it behind the scenes
Mhm.
for a long period of time, trying to fine tune this
But it's such a no brainer. Like, they have this, uh, what the fuck is it called?
League of Legends
It's the genre they call it, but
MOBA.
yeah, MOBA. They have a they have this IP and it's prime for fighting games. It's absolutely made for it, and they have the enormous amount of heroes in it. Like, it's like the most unshocking thing in the world to say that League of Legends would dabble in making a fighting game. You're like, yeah, that completely makes sense. I just
I think
and even
that's
if that succeeds, that's like best case scenario, and that's the only entry point in.
But
But
that's the secondary argument. I feel like the more important argument when we're talking about like a league fighting game is how effectively they can meld the hardcore with the soft core player base, right?
yeah,
Like you're very clearly going to get a lot of fans of League of Legends
but then they're gonna
that
be like, "What's happening?"
want to play a fighting game, and then you're also going to get the fucking sweaty fighting game FGC players that are going to come in
Yeah,
and take over 2XKO. And
but
like, how do you meld those two together? That's the most impossible, difficult thing. And I don't think any fighting game has done that effectively.
it's an impossible thing. But you know who's super fucking sweaty? League of Legends players, like
Yeah.
the type of people that are gonna say, "I'm gonna go play a League fighting game,"
Mhm.
are the type of people that've been playing League for like 10 years. So like they're obviously sweaty and committed. It's like it's almost. I still think it's like the perfect group to cater this
Sure,
to.
it's a perfect group to cater it to, but it's like a drastically different like
Mindset
ask.
and yeah,
Yeah, it's a drastically different ask. Like you're not going to come into like this game as a league player and be like, I'm good at fighting games.
I'll
And
have
that's the
to,
difficult thing,
I'll have to
right?
ask my brother-in-law. He's been playing League for a decade.
Yeah, like
It's just
you're not there's no parallels that are going to come into this game and translate to your like legacy experience with League of Legends. It's not going to happen, right? And
no.
so it's like therein lies the problem is it's like can you only rely or are you strictly relying on like your love
Mm.
for the base of the IP, the League of Legends aspect of it?
Well,
Certainly that's going to push people forward.
day
And I
one, they're gonna get rolled by the fighting community that's just waiting to play this
exactly,
game. Like
yeah,
they're gonna get.
yeah,
It's gonna go.
exactly.
It's
It's
gonna go
like
bad for them.
Justin Wong, who's like one of the best fighting game players of all time, arguably the GOAT,
Mm.
like historically. He does a fucking segment on his YouTube channel where it's like, how many people can I get to refund games that come out? Like, how many people can I get to refund this fighting game that just comes out? Because his legacy skill is just heads and tails above, like,
Oh, he wants
99
to beat them so badly
that
they
they refund the
refund it.
game. So he'll go on like
Yeah,
Marvel versus Capcom just got like a rollback netcode like compilation. So Marvel
yeah.
versus Capcom 2, who he's like a multiple Evo champion winner Marvel versus Capcom 2
He
player.
just goes in quick match
He,
scrubs.
well, no, he'll just go to ranked
Yeah.
because he knows the game so well. And then like there are hilarious clips that you can go and find of him being like, oh, this is this guy's first game on this game, and you played against me.
How
One
does
of
that
the
even
greatest.
happen though?
Well,
Like,
because it's like he's coming in like at the beginning of the game too, because there's no ranked
yeah,
points.
this is day one.
It's
Yeah,
day
yeah,
one
yeah.
type shit. That's the whole
That's
like
the whole
hook
joke.
of how many people can I get to refund this game?
It's like super dick move, but
Y-
also very quite funny.
Yeah. So like the leak people that are coming in, like I don't care if you're fucking faker, go in there,
yeah.
2XKO and fight some of these, legacy fighting game players. And like
Hmm.
2XKO is doing
It's a
it's a
shitty name.
it is a bad name. It really is. I agree with you.
Like
It
the fucking like League of Legends is a fine name. Like Twix, what the fuck we do now?
Yeah, agreed.
Should have done League of Legends fighting. Like,
Yeah, agree. I totally agree with you.
like
But like, uh, like you get like the best League of Legends player, arguably ever, MOBA player ever,
mhm.
and you get him into a fighting game. He's not going to be able to fucking hang. Oh, maybe he will be able to, but
I
I'm going
think
to
the
just go out on a limb and say he's not going to be able to hang.
I think the well, that's probably inaccurate because the best League of Legends player ever is a psycho, and that person probably does a whole lot of research. So that person's probably going to get some knowledge. It's not that person that is going to drop off. It's all the others. It's not the best League of Legends player because those people clearly know how to research and put their time
Sure,
into it. It's the people like
but it's
literally my
not.
brother-in-law who does not play fighting games but has played 1,500 hours of League of Legends. Like, he's
Yeah,
just like, well, I don't play this shit. Like, what am I
yeah,
doing here? Like, what?
yeah. But like the argument could be made that it's like if you love the IP enough, and it's like, I will say I haven't touched like any of the betas,
Sure.
alphas of 2XKO, so I can't speak of the overall quality. Generally speaking, most people think that it's pretty competent, but it's like a limited roster in uh, the builds that have been out in the
Mm,
public at Evo and things like that. But it's a tag fighter, right? I think it's a three. It might be actually it's either two or three. I can't remember quite off the
hmm,
top of my head, but it's a tag fighter in the same vein of like Marvel versus Capcom, right? So you have those assist abilities where you've got one character on the screen that you can quickly tag in one character to do like one single move that is going to extend a
sure.
combo and things like that. So yeah, it just remains to be seen.
It's gonna be a hard one to get a read on though, right? Because it's gonna come out and like it's going to get a ton of attention.
100%.
It's gonna get a ton of people playing it, almost regardless of
Hmm.
the quality of where it lands in the FGC.
I think that
And then 3 months later is going to be
yeah, I
the
think that
queue.
they're underestimating, right? Like because Riot had wild success with their shooter. What the fuck is the name of their shooter? Why am I drawing a blank?
That was on the show. I've heard the show's good. I actually want to watch the show. It's an
Yeah.
anime.
Well, no, it's not. It's not. It's Valorant. Valorant, right? Riot released Valorant.
Riot made Valorant?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were trying to
Mm,
take a piece
yeah,
out of Counter Strike's
Counter
book,
Strike. Yeah.
and so they had wild success with that. That game is wildly popular, right?
Yeah,
And
people like it a lot.
yeah, so it's like, can they do with that with a fighting game? Like maybe. I just think that it's you're taking a genre. You got MOBAs that are massively popular, and you're also taking shooters that are maybe cream of the
It,
crop, the biggest things that exist, that and MOBAs, and then you're taking fighting games where it's like, I mean, they're not on the same level of popularity that
yeah.
those two genres are. So
If they're committed, they can do it though. Like,
I
I
mean,
mean,
maybe.
they have unlimited funding, which that's not everything, but they potentially have the ability to say, we are going to make this work
Yeah.
and we will learn from our first 12 mistakes or whatever
Yeah.
to figure this out.
And they brought
Because,
in they brought in the right people. It wasn't just
yeah,
like random, they brought in FGC legends to develop the game.
that should be able to steer this thing too. That'll be interesting. Is that supposed, did you say this
Supposed to
summer?
come out this year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been in development for a long ass time.
Yeah.
I don't know like the timeline, but dude, like they announced 2XKO a long ass
Mm.
time ago, like 3-4 years ago, and it's still and I'm pretty sure it was like the Cannon brothers being hired at Riot. That was kind of like a well-known thing in the FGC, and
Mhm.
that was even before they
Long
even got
time ago.
close to announcing it. So they've been working on it for a really long time, and so who knows? Like I'm skeptical that
Yeah,
they can, emulate the success that they've had with League or with Valorant. Like
for
I
sure.
just don't think that that's realistic. But I mean, here's the thing: they certainly have a massive roster of very cool characters that they can pull from, and I think from like a creative perspective, it's like a very interesting thing because it's like, okay, here's the characters kit in the MOBA. How
How
do
do you
we
transfer
emulate
it?
this
Yeah.
and transfer it
It's
into a
pretty
fighting
cool.
game? Yeah,
In a lot of ways, it's really cool. And it's almost fan servicey
yeah,
for people to be able to see how that moves over. Like that's what they're gonna want to see. Like the
yeah,
people that play League are gonna want to be able to see how some of those moves move over. But
sure.
that's it's been a little while since we've cleared the floor for 30 to 40 minute fighting game talk. But
Sure.
it's always it's always very informative to just get the deeper knowledge out of your brain on this stuff, because it's I'm just over here just like, how does this work, and you fill in the blanks. It's
Sure.
good.
Yeah.